All right. So thank you so much, Tiffany, for being here. I really appreciate it. This is a very delicate conversation, you guys. And, I wanted to have a conversation about race from a white woman's perspective that's raising biracial children, because I feel I feel like it's a population that we don't really talk much about. And I just like to get perspective. I think it's healthy for everyone, even me as a Black woman. I think it's healthy and helpful for me to know how are you feeling? How do my white friends feel that are raising biracial children, if they identify as biracial or if their children identify as Black? I'd like to know what that looks like in your household and those kinds of things. So you guys, that's what this conversation is about. I will ask that people are respectful as they watch this and as they listen, and, just have an open mind as we navigate these conversations regarding race during these pressurizing times. So I have Tiffany Hinton here. And Tiffany, can you share with us about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. First, thank you so much, Ericka. I'm honored to be included in the conversation, and I've always wondered, like, how do I have a voice in a world where I didn't grow up? And so I'm very grateful today. My name is Tiffany Hinton. I live in the Chicagoland area, and I have a family of 3 little girls that are all biracial. And I'm a gluten-free lifestyle expert, an influencer, and a functional medicine health coach. So I always come with that coaching approach, even as I raise my children.
Yeah, nice. And guys, that's actually, so I've been following Tiffany because I eat gluten-free, because it's suspected that I have celiac disease, and I'm going through all this kind of testing. But yeah, I eat gluten-free. And so when I found out about Tiffany, what she does, I was like, oh, I need to follow her because I need to get, acclimated to this lifestyle. So that's how I know her, just in case anyone's wondering. So we're going to hop right into this conversation. And so let's start off with the murder of George Floyd. And, it has literally it has really enthralled our communities, our nation, just the entire world at this point. And the topic of race has really come to the forefront in ways that we've never really talked about it globally as it's being talked about today. How has it impacted your household?
So you sent me these questions earlier this week, and I started to look through them, and I read this, and I was like, physically, there's been no change. Like, our day moves on, and people still go to school, and people still go to work. And then as I got to thinking about it and thinking about it more, emotionally, that's where the change is. So our household, we don't have mainstream TV intentionally. My kids do watch a lot of YouTube, and they stream, and things started to pop up on YouTube channels or in the sidebars. And I started to think, like, and I had been following it on my feed, but we hadn't had the conversation in our house, even me and my husband. Like, I actually was awake one night, all night, thinking about, like, how do I have this conversation?
Right.
How do I explain it to my children? And how do I have the conversation without my husband feeling offended or mad? And I just put way too much story into it when it really wasn't that hard. And so I want to say that happened on a Friday, if my memory serves correctly. Thursday, Friday, something like that. All weekend, I kind of just thought so deeply about it that it kept me awake at night. And then on Monday, I noticed my husband had been up all night because he was texting me while we were supposed to be sleeping at like 2, 3 in the morning. And I was like, did you not sleep? And he's like, I couldn't sleep with what's going on. And that's when we first started to talk about it. And our family has just been starting to get over COVID because he was COVID positive too. So we had just overcome these fears of this virus that we thought would basically either put him in the hospital or kill him. And so here was another set of fears. And as we talked about it, we didn't know at first, because our children are raised in primarily because of where we live, a European community. Everybody speaks a different language, but they're primarily all white people, even though they don't speak English where we live in Chicago. And so it was like, how do we have this conversation with a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 6-year-old?
Right.
And will they truly understand? And so the biggest thing was fear. I think that was the biggest change for us. Like, if the girls go out to play, is anybody going to say anything? If I take Lily to gymnastics, even though she has a biracial coach at the gym, like, are any of the other kids going to actually say anything? And what is my response going to be? The other thing I think that changed for us was I had a realization when I did have the conversation. So I started out with the 9-year-old and I said, hey, I want to have an adult conversation. Can you come to my office? Any other time this 9-year-old wants to be in everybody's business in every conversation. And for some reason, she said to me last week, it was Monday, she goes, I don't think I'm old enough for this conversation. I go, you don't even know what we're going to talk about. She's like, no, I don't want to have whatever this is. And I was like, no, bring your chair, come down and sit at my desk. And I started to talk about how there was a lot of anger going on in the world and there were protests again. And she said immediately, like Rosa Parks. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. And so I questioned, I said, well, how do you know about Rosa Parks? And she said, Mom, we studied it at school. Now she's going into 4th grade next year. So of course they've had Black History Month and they've had this going on. And that became our platform. And so that was the first initial conversation. And it kind of started, then my fears started to diminish with the at home, right? Mm-hmm. The 7-year-old came back from the gym. She does 6 hours a day at the gym right now training. So she's there quite a bit. And the 9-year-old said, Mom should talk to you about something. And I was like, wow. Okay, I guess we're going to talk about this. Mm-hmm. And the 7-year-old who, Ericka, you asked me how my children identify, and I'll address that for a second, because my oldest, who is the lightest complected, identifies as being Black. Okay. My youngest, who is the darkest, identifies as being white and actually cut her hair a week ago because she wanted shorter hair like mine. And she thought if she could cut it, she could brush it straight. And it just, most of us know, what happens. Yeah. Take a brush to dry hair. But my middle one, because she is mixed, actually identifies as being Indian. She had Indian teachers in pre-K and in kindergarten. And even this summer, I'll see her walking around with like jewels and stickers on her forehead. So she believes she is brown. And so when we started to talk about the angry people and the protesting and what it really meant and how for our security, this is what we were going to be doing in our neighborhood. And we were going to be, staying together as a family. And I didn't want them going around the block by themselves right now. She said, well, I'm not Black and I'm not white. So what does this mean? And I didn't really have a response.
Yeah, that's
and I
tough.
took that back to my husband and I was like, so how do we start over with having these conversations with the one that's 7 and thinks that she's Indian, which I think is even more unique because she just picked up on the color.
That is very interesting. That's very interesting. And, when you just telling me this, I just think about how what, and of course right now they're young, right? But like how, as they do grow up, how could this impact their relationship? You have one sibling who feels like I'm a black girl. You have one that says I'm a white girl, and one that's like, well, I'm brown, I'm Indian, and I'm sure it's probably because of friends at school and that kind of thing. So that's very interesting to see how that'll work out. And more importantly, in the real world, how people are going to perceive that. So you have people that look at your kids and they're like, they're Black kids. That's just how they feel. And so, I think it's very difficult when you are a biracial kid because you have to choose and you're made to feel like you have to choose. And if you don't choose, the choice will be made for you. And so I think just trying to figure that out and go through that as a parent is it's tough. Just trying to help your kid understand what this means, how society sees you. And so thank you for sharing that. That's interesting that 3 siblings live together and they have 3 totally different perspectives on how they see themselves. So that's definitely interesting. That's an interesting topic in the future when it comes to biracial kids, because I just heard a story that another set of siblings, 3 siblings as well, and they all identify differently. And so it's interesting how kids kind of figure these things out.
Yeah.
So as a mom and as a white woman, what has been the most difficult part about navigating the situation?
The most difficult part for me is I want to raise strong girls. I want to raise girls that are independent. I want them to be, I've always been referred to as myself as tenacious. Somebody has said, well, you can't do that. And I'm like, well, watch me do it. And I'll tell you I'm sorry later. And now anymore, we play the I'm not sorry song.
Yeah.
And like everybody sings it and I'm like, we're not apologizing anymore. But that's my biggest fear, is that at some point in their life, they decide to be too bold and they get, in jail, or they get abused, or something happens because I've grown them to be strong women. And yet for some reason, it's not perceived as respectful.
Mm.
And so
And
what is that balance? And that's my inner struggle. I
yeah.
recently read Alicia Keys' book as well, and let one of my 9-year-old like listen to me read parts of it. But like, how do you become strong, respectful, tenacious, and go out there and be a leader,
Mm-hmm.
but be safe at the same time?
Right. And, especially with everything that's going on. And again, it's, society will see your kids as Black kids. That's just how society is going to perceive them. And, I think like the biggest part is having them be comfortable in who they are, understanding who they are, knowing who they are. You guys know my family, my husband is Panamanian. He's Panamanian and Black, but my daughter, Lily, her name is Jasha, but we call her Lily. And so Lily, she's very fair skinned. She has super long hair, and she has dealt with people telling her that, well, you don't act like a Black girl, because she's Black, and she, yeah, I'm Black. And people telling her, you don't act like a Black girl, or are you really Black? And, it's difficult as a parent to, yes, I do my job, and I know that I'm like, I'm affirming her and I'm making her understand and know, yes, you're Black, be comfortable in that. You don't have to apologize. You don't even have to prove anything to them. But still, she's still a kid, and you still have, I understand she's still a kid and she has to deal with this at school. And so it is difficult when you are trying to, you know, raise these tenacious kids, resilient kids,
Mm-hmm.
and then they have to deal with how society sees them. And as a parent, for you, you do sometimes feel like, oh my gosh, am I doing the right thing? Am I helping? Am I,
Yeah.
you go through a range of emotions. So I definitely understand that. So, as a mom, if you could send a message to others about race, what would you say?
My biggest, I think, message would be like, you have to lead from your heart.
Mm,
It's not about being colorblind. I hate people using that language. It's
yeah,
it's actually like listening to the person from your heart.
yeah,
It's when you walk into a room of people, we feel energy,
yeah,
right? And you know who's good, and the Holy Spirit's going to tell you who's bad, and you're going to feel it in your gut. It doesn't matter where you're at. You just need to, like, you have to open up and you have to listen. And I think if we can learn to lead with our heart and teach our children to do the same, that's where the change will happen.
right, right. And so I can just tell you, like, as a Black woman, I've had like my white friends contact me and say, hey, Ericka, how can we help? How can we support? What can we do? And so my question to you is, like, as a white woman who has a Black husband, and they ask, what is it that you feel that they can do to help and support you through this time?
We actually talked about this too as a family, because there's some other stuff happening in our community, because we
Mm,
are one of the rare families that are Black,
mm,
is to listen, to lead with empathy, to seek to learn more,
yeah,
not to judge first.
absolutely. I know that must be tough because your husband is Black. In my community, when people see me, I'm the Black person. They see my husband, they don't know what he is. They don't know they actually don't know if he's Latino, if he's Middle Eastern, they don't know. So I think that with that, it's more difficult when the man is Black in a
Mm-hmm.
community, in a predominantly white community. Um, as far as me being a Black woman, the difficulty comes in at like not being included in the typical things that moms get together and do. So I do understand it from that perspective, but I can see how, being a Black man in a predominantly white community, just the issues that may arise from that and the difficulties it make. And that breaks my heart because this is a Black man raising his family, doing what he has to do. And it's sad and unfortunate that people see him and the first thing they see is color. And then they make all these judgments, and just they have all these preconceived notions just based on that, and they probably haven't spoken to him, or haven't even gotten a chance to know him. And it's so unfair, and that's the big thing with this whole conversation, is getting to know a Black person, talking to them, not assuming that they're this or they're that. Just get to know them, and you'll find out there's a lot that joins us than actually separates us, and that is big. So looking to the future, what do you hope will come of this?
And that's a difficult question, because
It
it's
is.
hard to see the future.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to see the past. My biggest hope is that there is more learning, there is more understanding, there is more education. It's not just 1 month. I would love that my kids would learn this on a regular basis at school. I think that also there should, my biggest hope too of this is that there's a deeper understanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I brought it up. I'm very involved in my kids' school. And so I brought it up, and I was just like, hey, I'm just going to be honest with you guys. Since we're talking about race, we don't talk about Black people enough at this school. Just being honest, we don't. And there needs to be change with that. It needs to be changed, though. Even Black History Month is very kind of, you kind of fly by it. You talk about Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, and then that's where it ends. And, you guys need to do a better job at talking about Black people in history throughout the school year. It doesn't have to be just 1 month, like you said. And I think that's what helps the kids get used to seeing this. And it doesn't have to be this thing where, okay, we're only talking about Black people 1 month, and then after that, back to our regular schedule program. And I think that it's important that kids see these things all the time, because it doesn't have to seem like it's so not normal to see Black faces and Black people in specific in spaces, So I agree. It definitely needs to be something that's throughout the year, sprinkled in, right along with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So can you share with us, share with everyone how they can contact you and kind of where you're at? Do you have anything coming up? We'd like to know those things.
So we are online at GF for gluten-free, mom certified. So gfmomcertified.com, gfmomcertified on all your social media platforms. Our biggest thing we have coming up is this Saturday. We actually have a Thriving Through COVID educational live stream on Facebook. And it's going to be about 45 minutes of diving into the science and what it means.
Oh, awesome. How is your husband, since we're on the topic of COVID, how is he doing?
He's completely back. I mean, he's walking 15,000 steps again, which again brings the police around. Like, why are you walking in this neighborhood? That was a whole nother story this week that happened.
Oh, wow.
But
oh my gosh, this week.
Yeah. Wow. So, but his health is back. He's doing great. And I am so, so blessed that, we had the blessings to find a doctor that knew how to treat it.
That's awesome. And then speaking of your husband, how is he? I mean, I know it's a difficult time. It's a difficult time for everyone, but how is he doing with everything that's going on as far as the race? I mean, I hate that happened to him just this past week. It's bad timing.
It's bad timing, but I think it's been a constant,
Yeah. It's a constant thing.
At different points. Yeah. So it was just another, again.
Yeah.
Which I hate to say it like that, but
but it's true. Yeah, it's true. It's like, oh, here we go again. Someone's questioning, why am I in this, in the area where I live, and I bought a house and I pay taxes, and for some reason I'm not supposed to be here. So I definitely understand that, that position as well.
The thing I know that he struggles with, and I do too, is just, raising the girls, is raising them to be strong, making sure that they're safe and they're protected. Mm-hmm. And then we've been talking about what do we do for vacation this year, and where do we feel safe going? And that's another huge topic that has to be dealt with.
Yeah. That is a huge topic. We actually talked about that. We talked about, what's something that we can do safely because of COVID, of course. And then, with everything going on, what is something that we can do? And so we're tossing up the idea of, definitely a road trip, and just trying to figure out where, where to go, what does it look like, and then that kind of thing. So I definitely understand. It's definitely, this is a very pressurizing times, and there's a range of emotions everyone is feeling, and you just want to make sure your family is safe. You want to make sure that you are in the conversation. You want to make sure that you're letting your voice be heard, speaking up, but you also want to make sure that everyone is safe at the same time and you're not jeopardizing the safety of your family. So I definitely understand that, that sentiment, that struggle right now. But thank you so much, Tiffany, for doing this. Thank you for sharing your story. And I hope that, I hope that change happens. I know it's not going to happen quickly, but I think that we're off to a good start. And I think that you guys, even though wasn't the ideal situation, having COVID and then the murder of George Floyd, this was not ideal, but I think that this is what was needed for us to actually address race explicitly the way that it needs to be addressed, so that we're all sitting still. We all have more time than we ever have to actually sit with this thing, see it over and over again, and really digest, like, oh my gosh, this is happening. This needs to stop. There needs to be change. And so I hate that COVID had to be the one to sit us down. But I think it's necessary. And so I'm hopeful that things will definitely get better. Demanding that things get better. I think that's what we all have to do, is demand that it's better. But thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ericka. And again, this has been an honor and I appreciate you.